I guess,
This meeting is being recorded.
all right. We're well aware that we're being recorded. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Maya Hendel-Patterson, and I'm with the Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation and help coordinate our internship, which I guess I assume that you know a little bit about since you're here. But we'll also, with this presentation, go through more about our internship in specific, and then also just kind of applying for internships in general so that you get something out of it, even if it turns out that our internship isn't the best opportunity for you. I also have with me Courtney Jordan Beckler, and Delane Thomas Tebow, who will also be helping and jumping in. I guess, do the two of you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves before we get started here?
That sounds perfect. Yeah, so hi everybody, I'm Courtney Jordan Beckler. I'm a preventative cardiologist with the Minneapolis Heart Institute, and then spend half of my time in research with health equity and health promotion. And I have the great opportunity to work with Delane. Delane, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm Delane Tebow Thomas. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the very first Women's Health Equity Fellow at the Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation. I had the pleasure of serving as a population health intern the summer of 2021. A little bit different from this clinical internship, but I got to work very closely with some of the clinical interns. Learned a lot from them, and was great to see their growth throughout that summer. So I'm happy to be with you all.
Great, thank you both. And so I do have some PowerPoint slides, and so I will pull those up right now and share that. And we'll go through those, but I think that all three of us are pretty casual and flexible. And so if you've got ideas or questions or, you know, things that you want to dig in a little deeper, please feel free to raise your hand or pipe up. I think once I share my screen, I'm not sure I'll be able to see everyone very well. So do feel free to just unmute yourself and talk is fine. So let's record. All right, well, we'll see what happens here. All right, let me find all my controls. All right, so as we mentioned, this is the overview of the clinical research internship with the Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation. And so we just kind of wanted to talk to you about our internship in specific. And then, as I also said, to give you some information about internships in general as you apply. So some things to be thinking about. So first, we are curious about who you are, who's on the call with us here. So if you don't mind either unmuting yourself or putting in the chat just the year that you are in college, or if you're past college or kind of where you are, just so that we know. And then also if there's a specific field within healthcare that you're interested in. So if you can just stick that in the chat or unmute yourself if that's easier, that works too. I don't see anyone yet, but I'm not sure if I can see everyone. So Nancy, if you see anything, let me know. All right, well, maybe we've got a quiet group today.
Anybody interested in just sharing with us where they're at, or maybe you're in a location that you can't talk to? There we go. Vanessa's good.
All right, a senior in pediatrics, great.
It looks like, oh, I thought somebody might be typing, but maybe not.
Well, it can take a little while, so we'll come back to that as we keep going here. But let's see if I can get my slides to work. There we go. So just some benefits of an internship. I don't know how many of you have already had an internship. Clearly, you're all thinking a little bit about it. But some of the benefits can just be connecting to mentors and other people in the field, seeing professionals doing the work that they do and learning. It gives you a chance to ask some more questions of mentors and people who are actually working in the field. It can also get you experience to help get you where you want to go. And so, and it's kind of tied to our next point there of helping you learn what you don't want to do, which is a really important thing as well. So sometimes doing an internship helps you really see where you want to go. And sometimes you learn, oh, that thing that I thought that I really wanted to do, it turns out I'm not actually that interested in it. So that can be a benefit as well. And then professional experience in a professional setting. And so professional settings can be very different from school. And so getting some experience early on of just the language that people use and the expectations around an office or a professional setting can be really helpful as you're finishing up college and getting ready to move on to your professional life. This is just a little bit about the Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation and who we are. The Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation is actually a separate nonprofit, and we focus on research and education, and then use both of those things to help inform the clinical practice, especially with the Allina Health Minneapolis Heart Institute, who we work very closely with. And so our offices are housed at Abbott Northwestern Hospital, which is the picture there, which is on Lake Street in Minneapolis. And that is where our internship is based. And so if you do participate in the summer internship, you'll be coming to Abbott Northwestern every day and having office space there. Here are just some more specifics about our internship in particular. There are the dates for it. It does happen over about 12 weeks in the summer, and then a photo there of some of our past interns. An overview, we do interns with us participate in groundbreaking clinical cardiovascular research. Our research is focused on cardiovascular work. And so within that, there's a broad range of projects, but they all are related to cardiology and to the heart. Our interns get paired with a staff and a physician mentor. And so you'll work very closely with a physician who has come up with a research question. And so that's the research that you'll be working on, is helping to pull data to answer the question that the physician who you're working with is curious about. In addition to working with a physician mentor, you're also paired with a staff member of the Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation, who can really help walk you through the basics of research and help provide some guidance day to day. The physicians are often very busy, and so you do get good one-on-one time with them in this internship, but they're not available every day. And so a staff physician or a staff mentor, and then others in the foundation really do provide kind of that blanket for you as well. Our interns are able to shadow in the hospital and clinical services. So you learn not only about doing clinical research, but also what does happen in the hospital and in the clinic. We have weekly lunch and learns where the physicians come in, and these are great because they're much more casual than many other lectures. And so it gives a great chance to talk with people about their path to becoming a physician, which can be really interesting. And just to ask some of those questions about what you see your path to be. And then we also do some field trips to get you out of the hospital. So there are a few different locations that we go to within the Twin Cities to look at some different device companies and other cardiovascular areas. So that's kind of the overview of the things that our interns participate in. As far as outcomes, all of our interns learn the process of clinical research. That's as messy as it can be, which it can be messy and have ups and downs, but you certainly get thrown into that process. Share your research findings in a presentation and poster session. And so like I said, we have lunch and learns, and at the end, the interns themselves present in those lunch and learns. So you'd do a presentation that would be 15 to 20 minutes for staff, your physician mentor, which really gives you an opportunity to put together a professional presentation. And then we also have a poster session in the evening. And if you've got family or friends nearby, they would be welcome to come, as well as physicians, staff, and other people you've worked with all summer, just to see the amazing work that our interns put out. You may have the chance to get published in a journal or present at a national conference. And then, the main thing is really getting a chance to explore a career in medicine. And so like I mentioned before, you get excellent one-on-one time with physicians. And so really get a chance to ask some of those questions about what their career is like, what it's like having a family, if that's something that you're interested in, along with the medical career, what paths people took. There's all sorts of different paths to medicine. And so it's a really great time to explore some of those different career areas. And then grow professionally in terms of just communicating with people and working in that professional area again. And then our cohorts are generally very tight and very close, and do become very friendly with each other. So that can also be a great benefit. Okay. So eligibility requirements. First is that you're an undergrad or a recent grad in a pre-medical track, that you're enrolled in an accredited degree program, so enrolled in college, a GPA of 3.6 or higher. And this is a place that I always stop and mention that in the application under eligibility requirements, it's a yes or no question, but you can answer no, and there's a space there for an explanation. And so especially in these COVID times or things like that, GPA is one area, and there may be others that people may not fit that exact requirement, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot apply full stop. So if you've got a GPA of 3.5 or 3.4 or whatever, just put that in there, give an explanation for it, and we'll still consider the application. We do ask that people are US citizens or permanent residents, just so that people are able to work. You'll need to be able to complete 8 to 12 hours of online training before the program starts, and then be able to participate full-time in the program during those dates. Here are the key dates again, just of the application when it opened a couple weeks ago. And so I did look in there. It is a competitive program. We've had 90 people who have looked at it or started the application so far. And I think about 8 or 9 who have completed it. It is a pretty intensive application. So after this, we'll kind of go into some more of the specifics about that application itself. But you do have until January 4th to apply. And then we'll close the applications and start our selection process. And in early March is when we notify people if they have been selected. And then the program dates again. There's our website on there if you've got other questions or want to look at that for more information. And then the email address right there if you've got questions. So I guess before I go into any more specifics, does anyone have any questions on what we've covered so far? Or Courtney or Delane, do you have any comments?
I was just going to add a little bit here. So, one, just as way of background to everybody here, I'm excited to be a little bit more involved this year. I've been kind of helping here and there mentor Page Scholars for some time. My father has been on the board for quite some time with the Page Scholar program, and this has definitely been just a huge passion of our family in general, and helping to see people excel and just grease the wheels a little bit. So for me, I came from a family without any physicians, and applying to medical school and just sort of understanding different opportunities was super tricky to me. So it's been a personal mission to make it easier for folks who perhaps also don't come from a long lineage of physicians in the family. And once I started with the Heart Institute Foundation and became more aware about this program, the internship that we have, it's such a great opportunity. While nothing is a complete guarantee to get into medical school, that I think that the track here has been very successful for folks. And I personally have just really enjoyed having the opportunity to work with students that are applying for the program. So I think most of you, I see a couple of new names, but I'll make sure that everybody has my contact information, and Delane as well, so that we're interested in just anything we can do to help with applications and to make the process a little bit easier, because I think for folks, sometimes this can be a challenging piece if you're not as familiar with it, or if you don't have family or friends that can help navigate that process. So we are very passionate about making it a little bit easier for folks. So anything else you would add, Delane?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time unmuting. Nothing specifically to add. I have my whole spiel on, why I think that applicants should apply to this, but I could save that for the end of this discussion, or I can share that now. Just, thinking about flow. What do you think, Maya?
Let's see. Well, maybe we'll go through and we'll talk a little bit more about the internship itself, or the application itself. And then I do have some pictures, and so maybe that's a nice time to share some thoughts too, when there's some pictures up there to look at. Okay, good. Well, I'll keep plugging along here, but like I said, if I do see something in the question and answer pod. Can DACA students apply? Yes. And this is where I'll show, I am not in the hiring part of this. And so we do need to have social security numbers in order to get people signed up for payment and employment in that way. But I know that we did have a DACA student a few years ago. And so, there would be some of those things, just making sure that you've got a social security number and those things. But we did have one in the past, so I know we've been able to work that out. Thank you. Okay. Oh, here are the pictures already. All right. So these are just some pictures to give you an idea of what happens with the internship. And so here's some students working away on their computers. We do provide any equipment that you'll need. And so the computers, especially, you have to use our computers because of health information privacy laws. And so we do provide computers and the equipment that you need to participate. Down here in the corner is one of our field trips to the University of Minnesota, where people usually get a chance to do some virtual reality, like up through the arteries and veins and all kinds of things. Here's a student with her mentor, and here's a poster behind them. She was a lead intern. Every year we bring back an intern from the year before to act as the lead. And so they're there to help answer questions and just kind of help guide the new interns. And so this was one of her posters in the background. This was some two interns who were on our coronary artery disease team with the center there. And so they really became part of the team for the summer. And so it is a neat opportunity to work closely with some research folks. And then we have a few different events that are a little more dress up and a little fancier. And this is one of those at the Mendicata Club, where we bring in our people who help fund the program and fund the foundation in general, who get to also meet the interns. And so it's a really fun time for the interns and for our donors. And then it's not all work and no play. And we try and have a combination of people who are from out of town and then also local people, and the local people really get a chance to show the out of towners around and give them some tips and tricks on different things to do. And then also oftentimes the people from out of town are super excited to see things that those of us who live here never even think about. So it does give an opportunity to do some of those things. So just some local sites that people have taken in. Okay, well, Delane, do you want to go ahead now, and then I'll next just go through some different tips for our specific application and applications in general?
Yeah, and honestly, Maya, you covered so much of what I would really implore to students who are seeking to apply. The reasons why I think students should apply to this internship is, first of all, most colleges require some kind of capstone opportunity just to show that the skills that you've developed over your 4 years in college are applied somewhere. This is a wonderful opportunity to do just that. You've developed all these skills throughout your 3 to 4 years in undergrad. So, let's use them in a place where you can also be gaining a lot of skills as well. The mentorship is absolutely incredible. If you're a person that's like me, where if you really like your mentor, they're your mentor for life. That is Courtney for me. And so she was one of my mentors while I was doing my internship. And what ended up happening was so many different opportunities for myself that led me back to Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation as a fellow. And so this is such a unique part of the internship. I've done plenty prior to joining MHIF, and the hands-on, really community-focused mentoring that happens, I think that it's very unique within this internship. And then, of course, you'll develop skills working with clinicians, how to develop and submit posters or papers. The possible publishing is such an incredible opportunity, as Maya, kind of touched on, but then also demystifying the many paths that STEM or science-based careers can lead to. We have one person on staff who was a dentist before she joined, the cardiovascular space. And so you'll get to hear other people's career paths and then their trajectories, what they see as next for them as well. But it's not just about the skills that you will develop. I also want to honor the fact that as Page Scholars, you are uniquely positioned to bring your identities, your skills, your experiences, who you are to the internship as well. And so, the cardiovascular space, when it comes to the professionals within them, is overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly male. And MHIF has done a really great job of thinking through, how do we elevate women within this organization, and how do we elevate people of color? And that goes for the interns as well. So as we're talking about health equity, in the cardiovascular space, I'm a big proponent of, let's talk nothing about us without us. And so it's very important that students of color apply to clinical internships like this as well, not just for what you will gain, but for what we will gain from your presence with us over a summer and maybe beyond.
Great. Thank you very much, Delane. That was great. And Will, I think, is a great segue here to the tips for the application, because it is a pretty intense application. And so I know that that's true. And so we want to give some tips just to help walk you through it. So as I'll go through here, and I don't know, it seems difficult to tell, but I was curious if people have actually looked at it or not. But if you have taken the time to look at it, and there are questions that you have about it, please ask those questions now. That would be, we're happy to answer those. And as I had mentioned before, we do have our email address that I think I'll probably have at the end of this second section here as well. But feel free to email if you've got any questions. So here's just sort of general tips for any intern application that certainly apply to ours as well. but really learn about the organization you're applying to, and think about what you can bring to them and their program to highlight those things. And so it's important that you know who you're applying to and what you're applying to. As I said, I was kind of looking through some of those applications, and I think there's one person who talked a lot about their passion for dentistry, which, well, we do have a former dentist. We're not looking for people who want to go into dentistry, and I don't think this will be the best path. And so really know who you're applying to and what you can bring to them and what you can help provide to their program. Carefully read and follow all the instructions. If you have a question about something, ask. For ours, for sure, we've got that researchintern@mhif.org email address. Hopefully other applications also have some contact information for an internship. Give yourself plenty of time to complete and proofread your application. So our application is due at the beginning of January. I would not recommend waiting until, right after New Year's to start it. Make sure that you give yourself plenty of time, because it does take some time to think. And you also want to be able to go back to proofread it, take some time just to let it sit, and then come back to it just to make sure that you are putting your best application forward instead of just rushing through at the end to make the deadline. And then be open to sharing what you've learned and can apply from past experiences. And so we know that an internship is a great way to gain experience. And so we don't expect you to come in being a top researcher and having done all these clinical experiences and things like that. But everyone has had past experiences. And so really thinking about what you learned from those. And so, maybe bagging groceries, you learned a lot about working with other people, managing conflicts. So what are those experiences that you've had? And then what have you learned from them that you can apply to future things that you do? Let's see, I see something in the chat, so I just want to see. Okay, good. Yes, please do ask questions if you've got any. And so our internship application in specific not only asks for sort of your general information, but has a few different sections. And so one is an experience and short essay section. And so we ask about an experience that you've had, either paid or unpaid. And so what you did, and then, like I mentioned before, what you've learned from it and what you've learned about yourself. And so do take some time to really think about that, be specific. We just ask for a very short answer. And so make sure that you're concise and read all the directions on that. There are some instructions on how to answer that. And then some short essays just on kind of some experiences where you've had to learn quickly and how you did that, because you will have to learn very quickly in this internship. There's only 12 weeks and people come a long way in those 12 weeks. So I know it's pretty busy with learning quickly. So take some time to really think about those answers. We also have a writing sample. And so there's an article that you will go to and read the article. And then there's some prompts about that, but summarizing it, and then how you would use that information, or what that information, how that would be useful. And so take some time to really think about that too, to read that article thoroughly and work on that. And then another really important part, and this is true in our application and will be true if you go to medical school, and medical school applications, is a motivation statement. And a motivation statement should be very specific to each application. And so why specifically do you want to do an internship with the Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation? And it's an opportunity just to tell your story. I think Delane was kind of talking about bring yourself to this internship. It's bring who you are. And so this is a great chance to tell who you are and what your path has been, and what things have happened to you in the past and that you're doing currently, that have led you to your interest in this internship? And if you participate in this internship, how do you anticipate that helping you into the future? So we want to just kind of learn about that path from your past through your present to your future. It's a chance. Yeah, please.
Sorry to interrupt you. There just is a question here. Wondering if you're selected for the role, what would the time commitment look like? How many hours per week is it?
Yeah, it's during those 12 weeks, it's 40 hours a week. And I will say my guess is that sometimes during the end of that, it might be a little bit more than that to make sure that everything gets done in that time frame. So it is definitely a full-time position. It is paid. We have a stipend of $550 a week that gets paid minus taxes. And so it is paid for that, but it's definitely full-time. And so it would be difficult to have another job or be doing some other thing that takes a lot of your time. We have had students who apply to medical school during the summer. It's very busy for them because they have to do that in their spare time and in their time that they're not at work, but that has happened too.
And then can I just add if there are people that is a challenge for having it be full-time and not being able to do other commitments, if it's a job they already have or whatever, the housing is not provided, correct? Is that right, Maya?
Right, yep. Housing is not provided. And so we do put people in touch with other interns who are accepted. So hopefully they can find roommate situations. I will also say that if the pay or housing is a barrier to doing it, we do have a small pot of money that we can help provide some scholarship for that. And so that's something that we would address after you were accepted. And so if this is something that you're interested in and passionate about, please do apply. And then some of those details we can kind of work out in the spring as well.
Thanks. That's what I was just going to say. For people who are interested, please do apply that way. And if you feel like confidentially reaching out in the interim, either again to Delane, myself will be available too, just because I think we want to make sure that anybody that's interested is able to apply, and then that we could work through any logistical pieces that might come up to make it successful.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Okay. And so then, and if there are other questions, just let me know about them. It's hard to monitor chats and talk and all of that. So, and so with the motivation statement, it's another great thing to write and then give it some time to sit, to go back and look at it. If you've got people to help you proofread that or kind of talk through it, that's also very helpful, just to make sure that it makes sense to someone else, to get other people's eyes on it. And I would highly recommend that you do that. And then just show appreciation for the opportunity to apply. You know, our internship and many internships are competitive, and the people reading them always appreciate seeing that people are appreciative of that opportunity. And then finally, if you may look at our application and realize that it's not exactly what you want to do, but that you are interested in healthcare. And so these are some areas, and Courtney, feel free to pipe in here too, or Delane, if you've got other ideas too, but ways to just expand some of your exposure to healthcare. And so even if this internship isn't the right thing for you, but you are interested in a profession in healthcare, some other things that you can do are volunteer. We have interns who have been scribes before, which really gets you in to see kind of how things work in the clinic. We've had interns who have been EMTs, people who have done senior care. If there are clubs or other interest groups at your school, if you have the opportunity to shadow professionals, in the areas that you're interested in. Like I had said before, an important thing is also learning what you don't want to do. And so sometimes once you get in there, you see what you do and don't want to do. And then if there are research possibilities that come up at your school, if you can participate in those, that also can be really helpful. And then the last thing there is really thinking about what motivates you. You know, many people who go into healthcare are highly motivated by personal experiences or by wanting to help and for heart and passion. And so sharing that also just to show why you want to go into it and what motivates you to be pursuing that field. So do you have other things that you want to share, Courtney, about how to gain experience, or Delane?
I think that's great. Again, I think pretty much everybody on this list should have gotten an email from me and just suggesting that we try to meet for about a half an hour, whatever the case is. So we can have a chance to chat a little bit about the process, your interest. And then again, if this doesn't seem like a right fit, that perhaps there's other ways that we have a lot of research going on right now that you might be able to be a part of in another way if it wasn't a full-time internship, if that for whatever reason isn't of interest to you. But the other thing I would just emphasize is that I've spoken to two of you on the call so far, on the webinar so far, and I think there's a lot of interest in public health and medicine, and so that is a lot of what the space that we work in. So it's also kind of a great opportunity to experience that, flesh that out a little bit, because there are more and more people interested in both that way. So again, some of that applied community health research is a lot of the space that we live in, and then is part of what the summer interns do. They volunteer at Fresh Food Fridays, which is with one of our federally qualified clinics on the north side. That's usually definitely a favorite activity for folks. And then last year, and I'm sure this summer, we had our interns participating in community screenings at the local YMCA, also on Broadway over on the north side. So many, many different opportunities. I would highlight two other things that a couple of our interns have become research associates with us who are doing gap years. So that's something to think about, because I know some folks have mentioned that. I also did AmeriCorps during a gap year, and that, you know, that was one of the best years that I've spent. But just would emphasize, you know, the more exposure you can get, as Maya was mentioning, it really helps kind of, for me at least, really helps solidify what was kind of fantasized about what medicine is versus what it really is, which didn't stop me from going in it, but was just really helpful to have a little bit more of an idea of what you're getting involved in. Delane, things that you would add?
Oh, nothing for me. You guys covered it all.
All right.
Well, we do have a little more time, so if there are other questions, if you're able to unmute yourself, feel free to do that. And we're happy to take questions. And then also on the screen there is an email address that if you've got questions after this or questions that you'd rather ask privately, is my contact information for the internship.
Looks like one of the questions, what type of projects do your interns work on? Is there a wide range? It's very wide. So like last year, the intern that we worked with, we did a query of our database. A lot of times we're looking, because we have a large electronic health record, at kind of retrospectively things that have happened. In this case, we looked at women who'd had children in the last year in our medical record, and then looked at risk factors that develop during pregnancy, like high blood pressure and high blood sugar, and whether or not they received intervention afterwards to lower that risk. And now we're just in the next phase of that, that Delane is working on with the intervention then to reach out to those women whose risk weren't lowered completely. So that's an example of one. So the intern that we had, Anna, was involved with both, doing the chart reviews and figuring that, looking through those charts to gather that information, and then also ultimately helped us write an abstract that we've submitted to the American College of Cardiology for a poster presentation this spring. We usually have things from kind of our main science centers. So there's rhythm, different types of looks. So people looking at things that have happened with pacemakers and defibrillators, and novel ways to program those to be more effective. There's usually things with our valve science center. So that's going to be the aortic valves, the mitral valves, and looking at some of the interventions that we have that way, as well as blockages in the arteries, is another area that it kind of depends on what the physicians put forth as projects they're looking to help get work with. But I know we will certainly be submitting something from an equity perspective, a prevention perspective, and maybe a third. So it depends. But
And
let's
on
see
our
what else.
website, on the
ahead.
website there, you can go in and look at all the projects that people have done in the past few years. So that's another place to see some of those specifics. Are there other questions?
No, it looks like Nancy mentioned that you can unmute if people want to ask questions too.
I just want to encourage you guys to ask questions, because I cannot answer them, and you have people in front of you who can answer them way much better than I would be able to. So hopefully you've already looked at the application already. But one question I also wouldn't mind asking is, what is the ideal candidate? Like, what are you looking for when you're reviewing the applications?
Yeah, and so we do ask a lot of questions, as you'll find. And so we take into account some of those basic things. So we do look at GPA, which is one of those eligibility criteria. We look at where people are in their schooling. We have found that people who have just finishing their junior year, so who are current juniors now, that's kind of a sweet spot. It's not a make or break with that, but we have found that that's kind of an ideal time to do an internship like this. We do look at how you've kind of taken the experiences that you've had and put that forward as something that will benefit you in this internship. To do the internship, like I said, you have to be able to learn quickly. People have to be willing to ask questions, make sure that they know what's happening. And so figuring out the best way to communicate with people. And so showing that you've got good writing skills as far as the short answers go, and the motivation statement. And then just seeing that passion coming through, that this is something that you have kind of been building towards, whether you have specifically been, that's been your purpose or not. And then that you can really see how this will launch you forward in the future as well. And so, so those motivation statements and those areas are really important. And then we do look at a mix of, we do like to have local people. Like I said, we like to have a mix of some people who are not local, but then we really do Also keep an eye on how do we, lift up and educate and launch the people here in our community as well. And so we do try and find a good mix of folks who are local as well.
Thank you for answering that. I don't know if you've seen the question in the question and answer box, but it's from Anonymous, and it asks, will proposed project topics be released before the application period closes? If so, should we include these in our statements?
And they won't be released. And so we, the projects, we, as Courtney kind of mentioned, solicit those from the physicians who we work with. And so we're just starting to gather those now and in these months, and then we'll be finalizing them. And then even after the interns are selected, it takes us a little while to get them refined. And so once interns are selected, we have a phone conversation or a Zoom conversation with people. And that's where we try and gauge your interest and your background, and then see what we can do as far as matching the people to projects. And so, if you've got a strong passion in an area that we've got a project, then great, we'll connect you with that. Otherwise, we do our best, but people aren't always connected with their ideal project in terms of topic area, but you certainly learn the research process through that.
It looks like there's another question about which part of the application would you say applicants struggle the most with? Maya, would you say that is the sort of summarizing the article?
That one is a tough one, just because, you have to read a scientific article and then summarize it and summarize it concisely. I'll also say, that as far as what we really, so that we look at in terms of, are you able to do that, and how well are you able to articulate that? However, I think that the motivation statement is something that we weigh more heavily as far as when we're looking at applicants. And so that, and some of those experiences, and how do you take the experiences that you've had and talk about them in a way that really shows us that you've learned from those and that you'll be able to apply it. So I think some of those writing things are challenging.
And the article this year, just in that reference, is about the cultural competency in research, correct?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So, and just, I think Delane said this earlier, but I just would encourage people, this is one of the biggest areas that healthcare is struggling with right now, is really health equity and health justice, and figuring out better, effective ways to ultimately not just be researching data around healthcare outcomes, but actually seeing improvement in both participation in research and clinical outcomes. And this is something that everyone on the phone here has a lot of lived experience, and really an upper hand, I would say, than many of our applicants who haven't had that, or for those applicants who haven't. So I would just encourage people to lean into that and be forthcoming about, again, some of the experience that you have had that others have not.
All right, are there other questions? It looks like we've just got a couple of minutes here left. Okay. Well, like I said, there's something in the chat. Okay.
No, I'm just typing out the answers for those.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, well, like I said, there on the screen is our contact information. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the application yet and you are looking at it, please send us an email if you've got any questions, and I check that email box every day, so I'll get back to you quickly. And yeah, I really encourage all of you to apply. It really is a really neat summer experience. And so please, yeah, go for it.
All right, well, thanks everybody. And please reach out to me if there's interest. We'd love to help make the application part a little bit easier. Happy to proofread the mission statements, the article statements, and help out in any way that can be helpful. Oh, I know what else I was going to say, Maya. There's boxes to check, right? That one, they're a Page Scholar, and two, that if they've been referred by anybody and they should put my name down, correct?
Right, yes, there is a spot that says, where did you hear about the internship? And so you can check more than one, but do make sure that you check Page Foundation there. And then there is a spot to say if you were referred from anyone. So yeah, feel free to do that as well. And we do check those things, and so make sure that you do that. All right. Anything else you want to say, Nancy?